Welcome to the Momentum Ministry Partners podcast. This podcast is designed to provide momentum in our God-given roles of leadership as we partner together to equip today's Christian leaders for tomorrow's opportunities. Whether you're a pastor, youth leader, ministry volunteer, parent, or student, we want to be your go-to and most trusted resource for equipping and encouragement when it comes to your ministry and leadership influence. Thanks for tuning in, and we hope you enjoy this episode.
Hey everybody, welcome to the podcast. I'm Kadi Cole. I'm the Executive Director of Leadership Development at Momentum Ministry Partners. And Killian, why don't you introduce yourself?
My name is Killian, and I had the wonderful opportunity of attending Momentum Marketplace throughout my high school career. And I attend the University of Akron right now for finance.
Awesome. So Killian is here with me because we want to talk to you a little bit about Marketplace, but mostly we want to do a great introduction on our guest speaker for today, Willie Robertson, who was with us at Momentum Youth Conference this last summer. We got the chance to sit down and have a great conversation with him and learn from him in the main session. So we want to encourage you to go to the YouTube channel and check that out. He did a great talk there as well. But Momentum Marketplace is really our new program at Momentum Ministry Partners for churches to implement that connects their high schoolers like Killian, who are interested in a career in the marketplace, with mentors from your church in a mentoring experience where we talk about a theology of work, we talk about career disciple making, we talk about career readiness skills and the spiritual formation principles behind that. And then we do it all in the context of this intergenerational mentoring relationship that you got to experience, right? Some mentors from your church took the whole kind of school year, 16 weeks, and met with you every week, talked through this curriculum and poured into your life. So we have that program available for you. If you want to check it out, you can click the link below, or it's momentummarketplace.org. But Killian, share with everybody a little bit about what that experience was like for you in Marketplace.
Yeah, for sure. It was a great experience. Hands down, I learned so much. It was so fun because our mentors, they took us on like a little field trip throughout the day. Every once in a while, we got to see what their business was like and how they were influencing people around them and how they were marketplace leaders. And it was just really cool to see that, like, you don't have to be a pastor to share the gospel. You can do what you enjoy, share the gospel. I just thought it was just the best thing.
That's awesome. Yeah, so you're a PK, you're a pastor's kid.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we found in working with young adults over the last several years is that many students have a calling into full-time ministry, about 10% of our students who come through Momentum. But 90% of the students are more like you. They're like, I actually have a calling into the marketplace. I want to be in the world, but not of it. I want to share my faith as a member of a business or an organization, or I want to start my own business. And we wanted to really help give students understanding that their calling into the marketplace, whether it's business, education, healthcare, whatever it happens to be, is just as important as a full-time calling into ministry. God doesn't really discriminate. He designs each of us uniquely, and we all have a role in the kingdom that matters. And so we want to help people like you have a missional mindset, not feel guilted or like maybe they haven't loved God enough by going into full-time ministry, but they actually can fully be who God's created them to be and make a big impact in the kingdom wherever their work takes them. So thanks for being a part of it. You were a great part of our pilot program, one of our star students. So
thank you so much.
It was great to invite you in too. One of the things we want to do is then help our marketplace students have exposure to other marketplace leaders and people like Willie Robertson. So we got to sit down and co-host this podcast. It was really fun, wasn't it? What were some of the things that you were excited to learn about from Willie in this interview?
Yeah, I've always watched like Dynasty for like all my life. Is like a big part of what I watch, and I just thought I wanted to hear how his faith and his career like coincided.
Yeah,
that's the right word. But yeah, I just seeing someone of that like big popularity, seeing how like he didn't get lost in like the mix of all the media and stuff, and how he stayed true to God and his word.
Yeah. So Willie Robertson, our guest today, is the CEO of Duck Commander, which is a multi-million-dollar hunting and recreation business. It's been around for several decades. He inherited it from his dad. He tells a little bit about that story here. But he's also the marketing genius behind Duck Dynasty and really their family's platform as influencers. And his Christian faith is at the top of his list for those things. So we talked to him a little bit about all of those pieces, particularly his kind of behind-the-scenes journey as a Christian, as a business leader, as someone who wanted to walk through doors of opportunity that God gave him, which is really the kind of exposure we want to help our young people have through Momentum Marketplace. So thanks for joining us today. We hope you enjoy the conversation. We'll see you on the other side. Willie, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today. I'm really excited to meet you and great to hear more of your story. I've got Killian, my co-host, with me today. We'd love to start off with just a little bit of your faith story. You make faith a really forefront in who you are as a business leader, as just a man of faith. Talk a little bit about your faith journey and how that influences you in your business today.
Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you for having me. We just got here and in Indiana, so it's good to be here. I think I've been, of all the places I speak, I think Indiana is the #1 state, believe it or not.
Really?
You know what? Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, welcome back. We're glad to have you.
This is probably my 4th time to Indiana this year. So yeah, it's good to be back. Yeah, my faith, I've had faith my whole life. I really can't remember when there was no faith. And so grew up in a real... what became a faithful home, what was not what was a home that had zero faith in it, that had turmoil, and we put a movie out last year called The Blind, and it actually on my plane ride, it's on the planes now, which is interesting.
Did you watch it on the plane?
I did. Well, I've watched it a lot, so I haven't watched it on the plane, but and we actually made that movie ourselves, and so that was it really explains the kind of the beginning origin of the faith. And so I think if you were to watch Duck Dynasty, you've picked the story up way later in life, and so you see a lot of the fruits that came out of the faith. But I think people didn't realize how much it was not there, and almost the whole family didn't stay together. So there was a point in time when I was probably 3 years old that my father had kicked us out, and so their marriage was over. Everything looked like it was over, and were it not for the gospel coming in, my whole life would be completely different. And I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you guys right now. So it's amazing to think of what the gospel did. But a man came, my father's sister was really praying for my dad, and she saw something in him that obviously he didn't see himself, but I don't think anyone saw. And she went to this local preacher that was actually in Louisiana. We were at the time living in Arkansas, and she begged him. She said, "I wish you would just go preach the gospel to my brother." She said, "If you convert him, he'll convert 1,000 people." And so that guy got in his car and drove to a bar, which is where my father was working.
Wow.
Went in the bar and shared his faith with Phil, and so he didn't immediately respond, but it was not until later that he responded. My mother forgives him. The family stays together. And so that's what began our faith journey as a family. And then my dad just really radically changed it. He went from being really bad to being really on point, and especially when it came to sharing his faith. He was just always big into that. And so he would just preach to everyone. And so he started really soaking in the scriptures and learning. And so it was modeled for me, and I saw that, and so I took that on at a very young age, me and my brothers as well, and so we took that on, and we're like, we're going to preach too. And so some of my youngest memories are actually sharing with people and studying the Bible, and just, just a different, I think, than a lot of kids grew up that we did that. And so, did that and didn't know really where exactly I was going to be, whether it was going to be in ministry. I worked in ministry, and but the way it all worked out, it's interesting how we've done that. And actually probably to the culmination of that movie, to where we actually now using that as a way to share the gospel in the marketplace in a different way, through movies and through, which is another, it's kind of a clever way, I guess, to share the gospel, because a lot of people, you might not even realize that it's hit you until it's hit you. And so a lot of people may find themselves in my father's shoes of where he was, or really anyone. Like you could find yourself in perhaps my mom's shoes, where it's like, are you going to forgive? Are you going to, let God do some work? Maybe in our shoes where life wasn't really fair, but, are you going to live in that? Are you going to go on? Are you going to kind of be a victim? Are you going to move on? Probably the pastor for sure. Probably there's people that may need to go see and talk to and realize you may be the last person that can get across there. And so, and so that's how I grew up in the ministry like that. And then I actually ran a summer camp for 10 years. That's what I did in my 20s. Wow. I worked at Camp Chioka, which is actually where I met my wife in 5th grade. And it's where her parents had met as well. So we were really into the Christian camping thing. So I did that. And then ended up in business. Well, that was kind of business as well, because I rented the facility as well. So I rented it to other people, and then took over Duck Commander when I turned about 30, and so that's what launched me back into the business world. And then Duck Dynasty came along when I was 40. So it was almost like every decade it was like something new to learn, and then I had to learn all about television and all that. And now I'm in my early 50s, and so we'll see what's next.
Can you give us an example of a time where you had sort of a crisis in business, or maybe even in your own life, where your faith really dictated your choices?
Yeah, I mean, a lot. Lots of crises have happened in business. Some you may think are big until you get one bigger, and then you're like, oh man, that seemed like nothing, when other things happened. And I think, as far as a specific, I mean, when I took over the business, there were a lot of challenges, and so there was debt, and there was things that we had to get through, and so, and then you have to. I think it was a little bit easier to actually be faithful in the particular business I was in. It was a hunting business, selling duck calls. So you could have your faith, and it wasn't like people are not going to buy a duck call because of that.
It's not a controversial part of it.
Like-minded kind of folks that kind of in the outdoors that also can share that. And I think once you get to television, that's when in the media for sure, that's when it gets a more challenging, and so you have to really kind of figure out, where your faith is. And so even having the idea to put where we ended the show with a prayer, which hadn't been done. I mean, at the time it didn't. I think people are like, oh, the show worked so well, but nobody knew it was until it did,
Yeah.
So it was like, is this show going to work? And so although that wasn't, I think people may think that was a fight. It really wasn't. It wasn't a fight with the network, or they were actually okay with it. And but then some of the things that happened throughout that is when it kind of got more real, to where your faith comes in. And I think even and I just wrote a book called Gospeller, and I talk about this in the book where my faith was really tested, even just from the weight. Like there's no playbook like when something goes that successful that fast. And so I don't think you wake up thinking, oh, I'm going to lose my faith, but what starts happening, it starts happening, and you start slipping here, and then this gets overlooked, and then you kind of look around, you're going, where am I at? How did I end up kind of here? And so I think the enemy works in different ways, and so I think if he can come at you from a lot of those things. And so that was a time I just had to go, hey, I've got to, have a complete, sometimes you got to repent and change and get back on, but it is hard. I think being in the spotlight like that is hard. And it's just, there's a lot of pressures and a lot of things that, because it wasn't just from my perspective, it was because I was also running this for the entire family. So I was in charge of making sure all their needs are met, that everybody's getting paid, that stuff that happens in the media world. And so it can be a lot, a lot of responsibility.
Can you talk a little bit about that, of balancing your role as husband, as father, as son, then also business leader and media mogul, and you're maneuvering your family around? A lot of people have that. They share business with their family, or they're, bringing their kids up in their business, or maybe they're in ministry and their kids are in ministry with them. That adds a lot of dynamics to leadership. Talk a little bit about any principles or sort of lessons you've learned, guidelines along that way about that.
Well, I think balance is something that, I don't know, it kind of tickles me sometimes, because I think the common answer you would hear is how you go in with balance. However, I have a little bit different take, is that I think our life should be out of balance for the sake of the gospel and the Bible and our faith. It should definitely be should be out of balance in that, I guess how other people, I see them live their lives where they've got it kind of compartmentalized, where it's like, I have a little, I do faith here, and it's a Sunday morning, and then I'm out in the real world. And so I think, when your faith encompasses every part of your life, every day of your life, everything you do at work, everything, that perhaps may seem out of balance, and so especially when you have the opportunities to go and do, even being here, this is, could I have balanced it differently and said, I think I'll be home and I'll be, hanging out with my kids. But at the end of the day, there's such I think when you feel called and you feel moved to share more with other people. And as you read the New Testament, you see lives to me that look like, especially in the book of Acts, that look completely out of balance. It's like, it's just 100% pure serving God, living, teaching, traveling, even at the risk of death and hardships and all these kind of things. And those are the kind of lives. So sometimes I feel like, especially as Americans, we kind of, I don't know, I think we give ourselves an out going, oh, we got to have balance, and I'm going to be this. But oftentimes I find that even what seems like balance, maybe even out of balance for something. Even towards your children, like you can be way out of balance with how much time and how much effort and how much, and you're spending 80% of your time running around to practices and doing all this, and which is really not balance either, you know. And then because in a way that can kind of they can kind of become idolized, where it's like your main thing is that they have everything they need, when actually in actuality they're going to have to figure out how to balance their lives and live for God, especially without, that's why so many kids now are still living with their parents, because they hadn't figured that out, and they're like, oh no, it's a hard world out there. And so I grew up a little bit differently than, way differently even than how my kids grew up. We grew up really poor, and we were kind of on our own, and just had to figure a lot of things out. And so, but yeah, I think you can have, I think, when you're there, you can prioritize and have the right time to really be with them in the moments that you have with your family. And I think that's really important. I see people not doing that as much. Sometimes I see them, they're in the place, but they're not really, they're not in tune. They're like, they're still either on your phone, or you're still thinking about business, or you're, and you're kind of just in the same place. And one of the things, like even like the family meal that we had, that was such a huge thing. The prayer was big and good, but just the time together that we share around the table. Because what I found that when we did the show, so many people reached out and said, we never sit down together as a family. It's always on the go. We're grabbing this, we're ordering this. You're eating here, they're eating here, they're in their room, there, and even eating food becomes like that. And so it's such a wonderful time, and that's something that my wife and I were very intentional about it, because you almost nowadays have to be intentional to say, we're cooking, we're going to be here, we're going to eat, and we're going to talk, and we're not going to be on our devices, and we're just going to have that time. And so I think you can get some good time like that as well.
Awesome. Killian?
Well, this is kind of unrelated, but so growing up, I know you have Phil, you got Uncle Si, and you got all these great people around you. Was there a certain person that really just that helped you become who you were or who you are now, and whether in your business or faith?
I think it was the combination of all those people, as well as a bunch of other people that you don't even know, that never were on the TV show. For me in my life, certain men that, men and women, but, especially men that really spoke into me. Because that was the thing. Like Dad was, he was somebody to look up to, still is, as far as his faith. But also he was sharing with thousands of people, and just and so there were times that he was, I think, doing the will of God, and there were other people that stepped in. I was very close to my youth minister. That was one that was really influential in my life and taught me how to. He taught me about empowerment, so he would empower me to do it, not to let him do it, but for me to actually read the word myself, to actually teach. And he would challenge me to get up and teach in front of a group of kids. At 15.
Yeah.
And that got me to thinking about, it got me in the word, because then I wanted to get up and I wanted to do good. I wanted to be a good speaker and be a good communicator. And so therefore I studied the Bible, and then I had to be open to criticism and all that. And now, I'm 52, and I'm, one of the main things I do is go around and speak, and that was all, nothing's wasted. All that, those early lessons was helpful to do that. The guy that I worked for all throughout high school, a guy named Mac Owen, who actually he's the head guy in charge of the CR program, Celebrate Recovery.
Oh, yeah.
He's the national director of
Wow.
that in America. He was the guy who I worked for, who's actually my wife's uncle. Small town.
Yeah.
And then he had been on drugs for like years, and I was actually working for him when he came out. He went to rehab for like 6 months, and I used to go see him there. But he was a powerful voice in me as well. Taught me about work and hard work, and then he ended up kind of following Dad around for several years, and then they would do Bible studies where he was trying to get himself back what he needed to be doing, and then he got involved with CR, and now he's running that. And so it's funny, different parts of the world I'm in. Even just saying I know him, like people are like, I don't care about the Dynasty. You know Mac Owen. I'm like, yeah, I do.
That's
I worked
really
for him
cool.
when I was he poured into me, and so I think that's kind of that's the idea of the church, and people helping out. So it can be, and I think as parents we have to want to allow that to happen and let other people speak in. But there were teachers, there were people that that I was close to, and in high school I went to a public school, but there were people that I would just listen and learn and just try to get from them. So and Cy was always kind of weird and funny, but I didn't even really have a super tight relationship with Cy until the show. When I took over the company, I was like, okay, we can't really film Cy. He's so bizarre, and which is where I was off. I was wrong. And then once I saw what he could do on TV, I was like, oh, man, this guy's gold,
He's
and
natural.
so he's he's a great human too. He's just loves the Lord and all that. But
That's awesome.
you can't really just create that. It's like he's got a certain gift of doing that, and so I'm so thankful that he was able to show that and do that. I think another thing that's interesting is, like, you never know. I think, so a lot of young people are like, you may have plans, and I remember my 20s thinking like, I think I blew it. I think I should have, I didn't do the right things, and now I'm, and now to think that at 27, I'm thinking, God, I was so short-sighted of what all God had. Now think about my parents and Cy. Duck Dynasty didn't come along for them until they were 65.
Wow.
So think about, they pretty much were like, we're done in life, like certainly vocationally and career-wise. And then you have this thing come on, just like goes crazy. And then they just have this whole new lease on life. So you just never know what God may have in store for you. And, it's never too late. And it's never like, I blew it. I should have, if I'd have done this back in high school or done this in college, I think we kind of think that we've kind of missed it. But, man, you have no idea, what all could come.
God's never done with us. Yep, always new doors to open. So you mentioned your involvement in the church, especially as a young person. We love youth pastors. We love the idea of mentors here at Momentum. I'm wondering now, as a business leader, one of the things we see is sometimes as people grow their careers, they start to pull back from the church. They start to create a little separation between ministry, that kind of, you talked about being compartmentalized, that ministry world, and then what I do in the business. Talk about how you integrate that in your own life. What's the role of your local church in your life now, even spiritual mentors now at your age and stage of career?
Yeah, I think which I'll speak about that tonight, but I think if you try to separate, I just think it's probably a lie of the devil that we kind of bought into, or somebody all made some sort of weird agreement like, hey, we're just not going to talk about our faith because we're at work, and I guess if we did that, I guess the evil one would be happy and go like, sweet, I guess they bought into it. So, yeah, I don't hold that position at all. And so I think it's all connected. Like I work for God, I work for the kingdom of God. And so there's ways I can make money. There's a lot of ways I can make money. But that can't be what I'm identified by or what, and once you allow that to take over, and that becomes what you are, what you're chasing, even if it's money especially, that can be really, you got to be careful, with that, because you can get caught up in it. And then what you think you always wanted can actually destroy who you are in life, and it can destroy whether you have it or don't have it or have too much of it or scared you're going to lose it. I mean, like, it's kind of like the Lord of the Rings, my precious. Like it's all, it may not even be real, but it's the thought of what it is. And so I think ministry, well, I guess I'll say, and I love youth pastors and churches. And so, however, like when you can go make your money and you can also, you feel like you're a minister as well, when you can do both.
Yes.
When you're not shackled by even money, by the people in the church pay you the money. So then perhaps sometimes they may tell you what to do and tell you, what to say and what not to say. And so I think when you can go out there and get after it, and you can do both, so you can help the church, but you also realize you can help the church, but even in a bigger way as well, and especially converting, and that's what the book's about, which is actually converting the lost. And so so it's like the idea, it's not like if people are in a building on like a Sunday, and maybe they're all believers, maybe they're not, maybe some of them are, but that's them. But then what about all the ones who are not there? All the ones who have no idea who God is. So, and I think if we're not careful, we forget about them. So then we just start thinking about all the ones in the building. Like then we're trying to keep them happy, and then they're we're trying to feed them and teach them and disciple them. I get all that, but we never can forget about being out and actually converting people. Which, by the way, is where I told you where it started with me, where my father was.
Yes.
He wasn't going to go to a church building ever. Like he couldn't figure that out until he actually got the gospel. So the dude had to go to him where he was at to be able to draw him in there. Locally, I've been a part of a few groups, but I really feel like I'm a part of every group. We started a thing where we do on Monday nights, just because mostly I'm somewhere else on a Sunday. I'm usually with somebody other group. So Monday nights, we do a local thing, and so where I teach, and Sadie and other people that we do, and try to help the community in that way. But help all sort of local bodies, and so I kind of have a heart for this hope that we could work more together, especially in those who call on the name of Jesus can work more together. I just don't like the isolation of you're in this camp, that camp, and that all can be in this city. You know what I'm saying? Like it can all be. And nobody even knows each other. Nobody works together. I don't think that was the idea behind the New Testament. When they were doing that, wasn't like, oh, what's your sign say? Oh, okay, I can't talk to you.
Yeah, we're actually all on the same team.
Yeah. And so we're like, we label each other, and I feel in some ways it's getting better, than it probably was when I was younger, like a kid. But where we're all fighting against each other. So when that unity, comes together, and we can fight what the evilness of the world and what we see. Probably more every day, you just feel this darkness going, whoa, and so you realize there's so many people lost. And I would hope we would come together and do that more. And again, I'm able to do that a little bit more because I get to go talk to, I'm all over the country, all over the world doing that. And so I'd like to do that even on a local level, which is hard though. It's hard. Like I've been in it, it's hard. I've been to one place and then to another, and it's like now all of a sudden somebody doesn't talk to me anymore. And I'm like, what happened? Oh, I don't sit at your building, and so now you're like, you're on a different team. It's just sad.
Yeah.
So I have like a couple questions, but
Go for it.
For being
Do you
on
think
the,
about food or?
I mean, hey, is
I just want
Duck's
to let everybody
Diners?
know, he asked me how was the flight and how were the snacks on the flight, which
I
is
did.
super funny to me because no one's ever asked me about snacks on a flight. So I just and then we share some.
You'll
weird,
think
Either
about
hit or
Killian
miss.
next flight.
I will.
Every
Oh, yeah.
snack. Yep.
But yeah, is Duck Diners, is that still a thing? Because I saw that on the TV show. Is that no?
It's not. Yeah, that was a business that at the time, it got started up. It was just a licensing deal for me, so I wasn't. It was just a little bit different deal, and then
Gotcha.
I think the restaurant business it's
It's
tough. It's a tough business.
Well, that's awesome. So, throughout the whole show, at any point, did it get really hard, especially with like knowing people are watching like your everyday? Like, I don't know how often you guys filmed, but like, did you feel some sort of pressure and like, oh, I can't say this, or I don't want to mess this up, especially if it's surrounding like the gospel or anything like that?
Yeah, I think you have those. Yeah, I mean, you certainly want to be cognizant of that and make sure that you don't. It's harder when there's a camera, on you a lot. You don't want to, because you're not. We're just human beings. You know what I'm saying? Like, I always used to say I'm one statement away from being canceled. Literally one thing you can say is like, you just did it, buddy. You just stuck your foot in your mouth. But you knew, like, reality TV, at least how we did it, was similar to what we're doing here. Mm-hmm. It's obvious we're being filmed. It's obviously we're being recorded. And so it's the same way. It's a true reality is a hidden camera.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Which is scary. But that's true reality because that's you have no idea you're being recorded. So, so knowing that a camera is there, knowing, and so you're kind of like, this is not necessarily your question, but it's kind of like you're aware of the camera, but you're not looking at the camera. You can what they call on the bit. You feel the camera.
Yeah.
So I could feel
present.
it. So I knew there was and I'm kind of playing to that in a way. And so most of the things that you're saying, you realize, of kind of what you're saying, and most of it's kind of all in fun, and even though it's reality, it's still kind of in fun. I think the viewers kind of buy that. You're like, okay, it's not, because we weren't serious a lot, so it wasn't like we got super serious a lot. So we kind of like that. We like that idea, and we like the way, I think we're like that naturally. We try not to take ourselves very seriously. In really in any context. But yeah, and as far as screwing it up, it's the beauty of TV. You can just redo it or edit it. You can say, take that out. That may have sounded. There were a couple of things that happened that even I would go back on the edits and I would say, I need to take that out. I just don't. Especially in the context, especially if they caught you something like picking your nose or something,
Take that
we don't need to lie. Like that's not what we're doing. And so, but most of the time, the network, the production company, it's kind of like a 3-pronged deal, right? So you've got the network or whoever's airing it, whatever platform that is. Then you've got a production company that's different. It's a different company. And then you've got us, as the talent. And so, it behooves everyone to have the best product and not to be ugly and bad on every level, right? Like if we did something that would embarrass the network did something. So it's all, you're all together. It only keeps going if it's positive and people keep watching it. So you are in some ways on the same page. It's not like they're out to get you. It's not like the media. The media may be like, I hope you say the worst thing ever so that I can go, and I can run it. And a lot of people watch it. That's the media. And so that's a different situation, but you're kind of all together, you're on the same team of what you're trying to put out, even though you may not be on the same team, or you may not have the same, even morals or, or kind of what you stand for.
You do want to all win together.
Yeah.
Yes.
You want to win, even though they may be like, I don't like your politics on that or your thoughts on that or the Bible. I mean, I think a lot of people that help put the show out, which is cool, didn't even believe in God, at all, and they may still not. Although I did hear back from several who just said, man, you made a big difference in our lives. Just seeing how you, not me specifically, all of us as a family, really helped their lives and helped them to maybe be a little bit open to faith in God and kind of how we did it. And so, because it's still a testament of working. We're talking about working. So when you work with your family, it can be difficult. When it's rolling good, it's great. What about when it's rolling bad? And it's like, so it's like your highs are high, but your lows are low. And man, we can, you can be perhaps uglier to the most of us are probably ugliest to the people we know the best, right? We're not, you see some stranger, oh, hey, and you're all, but we don't treat each other like that. We're kind of like us, like, And so, I think it's a testament to be able to work together, stay together as a family, not hate each other, figure things out together, figure out where the roles are in the family, because those can be difficult. And you may say, well, yeah, you're the CEO. It's easier for you. I mean, it is and it's not, heavy is the crown, right?
That's
when
right.
You wear it.
That's
so
right.
It's like, you have to be that. But if you can recognize those roles and recognize, hey, you're better at this than I am, so you're going to get this part of it. And so there.
I think you guys did model having a great, solid family and even being honest with each other and working through conflict. That is an example that a lot of people don't have anymore.
Right.
And so even just that was a testimony of your faith and love and commitment to each other.
Yeah.
So do you have a final question, Killian?
Yeah. If you were to give yourself 2 pieces of advice, one for when you were 30 when you started the show, and one when you were like, say you're 19, because I'm 19. I'm just curious. If you were to give one piece of advice to each age, what would it be?
Oh God,
That's a hard question.
That's a very hard question. That one may take me a month to figure out. I will say, when I was 19, I probably tell myself, just chill out and don't think that. I remember thinking, like, I was so like dire, thinking like, oh, that's the end. It's never gonna be the same, and I'm never gonna. There was just little things that I thought, was so big, and now looking back, they were so small. But so I think I kind of overplayed a lot of stuff, and just and really my whole spot in the world. I just didn't understand, experience and people that would tell me something, and so I would definitely do that. However, I could definitely do things better. I could have done things better. It wasn't like, it all works out, but it's like, I could have done that quicker. I could have learned more. Wish I'd have read more and studied more and taught more and learned how to play the guitar, stuff that I was like, dang, why didn't I do that when I was 19? So at 30, my advice to myself would just be lock in, really, do not get caught up in the distractions that are fixing to come along the way, and so, I think at 30, I tore into business and was like, I had a lot of energy coming in. I'd done the work for the camp and the church, and I'd got my kids birthed and on the earth, and then I really just locked in and said, man, I got to go get it. And it was out of balance. It was. But I think it's hard to find anybody that does this big business moves and all this, and yet they were able to do everything else like that. And so, it took, you have to work a little, maybe it's more than 8 hours, you have to, especially at the beginning, to know I had to be there and make sure I was doing it, and got the reward for that. But just don't be so distracted, and then still be open, because then this TV show comes, and which is another piece of advice I would give. Like, I'm not a big goal guy. Like, to say what's your 5-year plan, 10-year plan. Here's why that scares me. Because if you told me, Willie, if you'd have told me at 35, where will you be in the next 10 years? I promise I would have told you something so short of where I was financially and fame. And so what I was always scared was, I don't want to be satisfied with something where I think, oh, I hit the number, I hit the goal, I hit where I, and I'm satisfied, whenever God may have something so much bigger, but I missed it because I was like, I thought, this is what I went here for. So, man, I'm always looking, even today, I'm always looking at ideas and thinking, that could be something, even though it may be like, how would you even think that? Because you just never know. You never know. So I'm I'm cautious, I guess, on like, especially laying out. Like I hired a guy one time. He's like, my goal is to make $100,000 a year, and he had it all laid out. And I said, that's a terrible goal. And he got so mad. He's like, what? I'm like Ricky Bobby. I live my whole life on that, you know. Yeah. I said, well, man, you could make $300,000 a year, but once you hit the 100, you were like, I did it. And the next thing you know, you're not even looking, you know, because you're there's some sort of satisfaction. Maybe it's not, but maybe, you know, you just never know. So I always stay open to what that next thing is.
And that's awesome. Thank you. I never heard that before, like that perspective on. I really like that. Thank you for that.
Well, thank you, Willie, so much for joining us today. And thank you for saying yes to all the doors that God opens for you. And I know you'll continue to do that. And your book is Godspeller. It's wonderful. I love the stories in it. We're excited to hear you at the conference tonight. So thanks for joining us today.
Looking forward to it. Yeah. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Willie.
Thanks, Killian, for joining me today.
Of course. Thank you.
Oh my gosh, Killian, that was amazing, wasn't it? Amazing. I know. I felt like I was like hanging on his every word. I thought just the way he talked about things. First of all, he's such a real person, very authentic, and just had such great wisdom and insight. How about you?
Oh, I thought the passion was there. I mean, you could tell that like you might not have seen this side of him in Duck Dynasty because he didn't. I didn't get to talk with him in person in Duck Dynasty, but he was just the coolest guy that just had so much insight to his faith. And how that really helped him in the marketplace. And
so obviously gifted and anointed with a gift of evangelism and such a heart for lost people. And it just is a great example that we certainly want people to pursue careers in ministry. I'm a huge local church person. I coach a lot of pastors. I want to see that happen more. But it just shows you the power of someone who also is in the marketplace. And when God uses those spiritual gifts in their life through that outlet, man, his influence and impact is really undeniable. So that was very great. What would you say was inspiring to you, or do you feel inspired to do anything different having spent some time with someone like Willie?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I asked him for a lot of advice. I was like, what kind of advice would you give an 18-year-old, a 30-year-old, and now? And then I think what he just said was to just follow God with your whole heart and just do everything for him. And I thought it was really cool because it's like he's made it in the world, you know, but he still does things to further push the gospel along.
That's right.
Like he's still releasing the Gospeller book, and they're making movies, and I just think that's so cool how he just keeps on going.
Yeah, he's not done yet at all by any means. And so, I love that example, and I just really appreciate being a part of a team that's trying to help bring stories like that and examples like that to the forefront. So all of us, wherever God places us, whether we're working or not, whether we're in a church or not, whether we're in some big business or something that feels like a pretty small calling, all of those matter. God orchestrates that, and as long as we are using our gifts, being obedient to the things God has for us, walking through the doors that he opens and living boldly in our faith, we know that we're on mission and doing the things that God's called us to. So, Killian, thank you so much for joining me. I hope we get to do more stuff like this together, and thanks for being here with us today. We'll catch you next time on the Momentum Podcast.
Thank you for joining us for this episode. We hope you found it to be valuable. And if you did, would you share it with someone else in your network who might enjoy it? Also, would you please go on and subscribe, rate, and review it? That way you don't miss any more, and somebody else will be able to find it too. Also, because we want to be your trusted resource, if you have a question or topic that you would like us to discuss on an upcoming episode, send that to us via email to info@buildmomentum.org, or you can send us a DM on any of our social media platforms. You can find us there at Momentum Ministry Partners. Also, if you need more information on our ministry, be sure to check out our website at buildmomentum.org. Thank you so much, and we hope to see you next time.